Today hey everybody, thanks for watching. I'm here with Jordan Syatt of sidefitness.com, and I've been following Jordan for a long time. And I don't know, maybe even 10 years, 5 years ago, Westside Barbell was a big thing, and I came across one of his articles on the conjugate method on his website, and ever since he's been on my radar. And he's been places. I mean, he got featured on T Nation, ArnoldSchwarzenegger.com, Elite FTS. Those are the sites we all know, but he's also been featured on some mainstream media like CNN and Men's Fitness, Huffington Post. So I'm really excited to talk to him, and we'll just start off talking fitness, powerlifting, I guess. So Jordan, first of all, I'm always interested in people and their stories. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in powerlifting or fitness, if you don't mind.
Sorry, I think my camera's acting up a little bit. So in terms of powerlifting, so I was a wrestler my whole life. I grew up wrestling from when I was 8 years old. And when I was wrestling, I started using strength training to obviously get stronger and be a better wrestler. I was planning on wrestling in college, but then I was like, I don't really want to cut weight and have it be that intense. So in college, I actually then ended up switching to powerlifting. So powerlifting became my like full-time thing. I had already done squats and deadlifts and bench, and I had already lifted, but I had never competed, and I had never really took the time to hone it. So at school, I created the powerlifting team, and we competed numerous times throughout the year. And then after my freshman year, I ended up getting that internship at Westside Barbell. And I was there for a little over 3 months in the summertime, and we were training 11 times a week. It was nuts. It was like constant. It was the most intense training I've ever gone through. Also exceptionally effective. In like 3 months, I added over 300 pounds to my total. It was really a huge learning experience for me. And Louie is just the most generous guy in the world. So then a couple months after that, I actually interned at Cressy Sports Performance. And so I was there for about 3 months, a little bit less than 3 months as well. And that gave me a whole separate perspective, and they draw a lot on what Louie says, but also they take their own spin on things. And so that was amazing. And ever since, I've just continued training. Like powerlifting is that's my go-to. That's what I love to do. I love lifting heavy weight, and I love the sport in general, just because when you go out there, it's not like a team sport where you can blame someone else or you can blame, another person. It's like it's all on you, and if your training was good or if your training wasn't good based on how you perform. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of lifters can agree on that. That it's not a team sport. That that it's you who's making or breaking your lifts. But let's go back. You were wrestling. You didn't want to cut weight, and then you decided to do like powerlifting, which has weight classes.
So
what's up?
So with the wrestling, it's a great question. So wrestling, when you cut weight, you have competitions once or twice a week, and you have to constantly keep making weight before the competition. So when I was doing it in high school, I would be going through severe water cuts twice a week. Not to mention the minimal eating leading up to the water cut and the insane amounts of training. With powerlifting, you compete once every 3 or 4 months. You get 24 hours before you compete. In wrestling, you only get like 2 hours. So it was a much easier transition for me to cut once every 3 or 4 months as opposed to twice a week.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then you went to Westside Barbell. You did your intern there. How did you get there? Because I mean, just reading about it, I mean, I never been there, so I just read about it and watched all the DVDs Louie put out there. But it looks like an intimidating place. I mean, you were just like, I pick up the phone, yo, is Louie there? Can I do an intern? Or, I mean, I would be, maybe a little bit scared to call him or to go there to train.
Yeah, one of the things that I think has been very important for me is being ignorant, because being ignorant helps me not get nervous about stuff like that. So when I would remember vividly, I was in my dorm room in college, and I hated school. I was majoring in health and behavior sciences and strength and conditioning, and I hated what I was learning. I knew it was awful, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna email Louie Simmons and see if I can get an internship. So I emailed him, and I remember I still have the email in my folders. And I wrote, "I will do anything you need me to do. I will clean your toilets. I will take out the trash. I will do anything and everything you want if I can just come there and train." And Louie responded, and he said, "Our weakest guy squats 800 pounds. What do you have to offer?" That was his response. And
what did you have to offer? I mean, 800 pounds.
I was a 19-year-old kid, 128 pounds. Like, what did I have to offer? So I responded with, I don't, and pardon my French, I don't give a fuck who your strongest or weakest guy is. I'm going to work harder than every single person in that gym to make sure that I learn as much as possible and that I can help progress the industry. And he then asked for my phone number, and he called me a couple days later, and he's like, "Come out over your spring break and we'll have a tryout. Essentially, we'll just see if we're a good match." So I flew out there with my mother, and at the same time to look at apartments for the summer if it was going to work. And when I first walked into Westside, it was Friday. So it was a Friday morning. So it was dynamic effort squats. And Louie came out of a back room with a bloody tissue stuffed in his nose just like completely running with blood. And my mom is with me, by the way, and she's in Westside, and she's like beside herself scared because it is a very intimidating place. And Louie comes up to me, he's like, "You're Jordan?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Let's get started." I was like, "What do you want me to do?" And he's like, "Do this." And I was like, "Okay, how many sets and how many reps?" And he was like, "Go as heavy as possible and go until it hurts too much." And I was like, "Okay." And then the next exercise, "All right, Louie, I'm done. What's next?" "This. As heavy as possible until it hurts too much. As heavy as possible until it hurts too much. As heavy as possible until it hurts too much." That's what I did for 2 days. I've never been more sore in my entire life. And Louie doesn't believe in that type of training. I think he was just seeing if I was really going to be working hard. And I remember at the end of the Saturday morning's bench press session, he shook my hand and he was like, "Great, I'll see you over the summer."
Cool.
And that was it, man. So I got my apartment, and that was history.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, by the way. And who was training there at the time? Is it still like Dave Tate, Jim Wendler, still Trick Focal, Paul Childress, those guys?
No, actually, none of those guys were there. So I met Dave. I actually went to the EFS compound, and I met him one time. I met Jim randomly at a restaurant. I was out to dinner with Louie, and Jim walked in with his son. And Chuck Vogelpohl was not there. I don't even know if he was on very good terms with Louie at that point. But who was there? There was Tony Baloney, Brandon Lilly, Shaq, Jake Anderson, Jason Hoff. There were some absolute beasts in that group, and it was crazy and even my training partner. So my training partner was Gene Fry. So if you know Jason Fry, yeah. Jason's an animal, and he competes at like in the 170s or something, and just benches like 700. I don't even know, but insane amounts. And his wife, Jean, was my training partner, and she competed in 123. I competed in 132, and we were lifting the same weights. Like, we were going right back and forth. And actually, at that competition, she squatted more than I did. So we competed at the end she squatted 470 pounds or something at that competition at 123, and I was blown away. But everyone, and also, I don't know if you know, but Jean is also gorgeous. Like, she doesn't look like a typical, like what you would think a meathead is. Like, Jean is like really lean, really athletic, and just like strong as all hell.
Yeah, for me, it's awesome to hear those stories. I mean, just because I grew up, well, I grew up, my lifting career started with Westside Barbell. So, and even now my training is still, I would say, heavily influenced by it. I mean, it's not to the point where I still, do the template. I did when I was competing equipped, but when I changed to raw, stuff changed. I mean, I couldn't make it work anymore. But how does the conjugate methods impact your training now or in the past? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a really good question. So when I did geared powerlifting, I used that exact template for a while, and it worked exceptionally well. But when I switched to raw, I had to change it. It wasn't giving me the same results, and for a number of reasons. For example, for max effort on a bench press, raw bench press, you need more volume as a raw lifter. You really need more volume. You can't rely on a single max effort and then one accessory move. I've found you need at least 2 or 3 to really get the most bang for your buck. So all of my training is influenced by Louie and the conjugate system and everything that he's taught. I still emphasize speed work in a different way, but I still emphasize, speed. And the reality is, what I've found is the best programs, like the best training programs, have very common principles. So there's some type of a max effort work, there's some type of a dynamic effort work, and there's some type of accessory work for more hypertrophy and endurance. How you actually structure it will depend on the actual program, but they all have those important components.
Yeah, that sounds, I actually still do it like you say. You have a heavy day. I call it power days. You train for power or whatever you want to call it, and then you have, of course, your muscle growth training, your accessory work. Yeah, sounds really sensible. And then after Westside Barbell, you moved to Cressy Sports. And how did that impact your training philosophy? Because those are more, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are more in the, I wouldn't say recovery,
Right.
and more in athletic sports, I think, right? Not so much in pure powerlifting, pure strength sports.
So you're right. They're not a pure powerlifting gym. It's actually most well known for being a baseball performance facility. So getting baseball players to an elite major league level. They have countless major league ball players that go to their gym regularly. But Eric Cressy, who's the co-founder and owner, came from a powerlifting background. I think maybe in the 160s or something, he pulled over 600 pounds. Just a wicked strong guy. And his work was largely initially based off of Westside and conjugate and using those systems, and he tailored them as he went along. And he still uses some form of max effort, he still uses some form of dynamic effort, and he still uses accessory work. It's just in a different template and for a different purpose. So I mean, for example, a dynamic effort work for a baseball player could be lateral hops, because that's more specific to their actual sport. Whereas dynamic effort work for a powerlifter would be speed squats. So what really piqued my interest at Cressy was I was surrounded by baseball players who their goal was not to lift as much weight as possible. Their goal was to be a great baseball player. That's what their goal was. That's why they were there. But a lot of these guys, professional ball players, were deadlifting 500 plus pounds like it was nothing. And there's a lot of power lifters who can't do that. So for me, it was a really big turning point where it's like, okay, these are raw lifters, not geared. What are they doing that's allowing them to make these strength gains that other people aren't doing? And so that really helped helped me take a closer look at how I was programming and the differences based on who I'm programming for.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think, you know, getting multiple perspectives is really beneficial for everybody. And to me, it's still amazing that that most good guys, or as I say, good guys, they have a background in powerlifting, or they focus predominantly on strength. You know, not so much as muscle mass or endurance, but strength, which is basically the basis for all sports performance. So that's really still for me really cool to see always.
Yeah.
And after Christie Sports, you decided to expand your own wings and do your own thing? Or how did you get in where you are right now? That's basically what I'm asking, because your website has been around for a long time and you've been putting out really great content, putting out great programs. I even reviewed your DVD on the website, your mobility or max strength DVD. So
yeah, thank you.
You're really working it, man. So how did you get there, or how did you decide to do it?
So what happened was, this is a whole separate story. When I was at Westside Barbell, do you know who JC Dean is of JCD Fitness?
Yeah, I know of him. I don't follow him, so I know of him. That's basically it.
So JC, I had reached out to JC when I was 18. He was like 23 or 24, and he was just starting with his website at that point. I reached out to him and connected with him, and we were chatting when I was at Westside, and one day he's like, "Hey man, where are you?" And I was like, "Westside Barbell." And he's like, "Are you serious? What are you doing there?" And I was like, "I'm training, I'm interning." He's like, "We need to get you a website and start a business immediately." And I was a teenager, like no clue what I was doing, absolutely no idea. And he literally bought my website for me. He bought the domain name, he got it hosted, and he was like, "Here, start writing." And that summer, I pretty much just put out some of the content that's still the most viewed on my website, like the Westside Barbell Conjugate one, and tons more. And that really was just the major impetus for continuing to write and give content. And that developed into online coaching programs and a variety of other options from online as well.
Cool story, by the way. But you just went for it. You did your own thing, and you found your own place. That's awesome. And let's talk about you and your powerlifting accomplishments for a minute, because you hold 5 world records, I think, in the IPA, right?
Yeah, from the last time I checked, yeah, I still hold them.
That's awesome. And was it during Westside or probably not, because you were only there for 3 months?
Yeah, it was all after Westside.
Cool. So, and can you tell us a little bit, do you still compete, by the way, or not?
So my last competition was in January, and I was taking time off because my ultimate goal was to deadlift 4 times my body weight. That's something I've wanted to do for a really long time. And this past January, I hit that goal. So I deadlifted 4 times my body weight. It was a huge accomplishment for me. And afterwards, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take time away from competing just to give my body and mind a break, focus more on my business. And I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I got back into grappling, and my training has just been more focused on getting stronger, but not like for competition. So I will compete again, unquestionably. I wanna deadlift 600 pounds at 132 or more, so we'll see. But for right now, I'm mostly just training for me.
Cool, understood. And you're breaking up a little bit, but I'm just gonna keep rocking and rolling. So you deadlifted 4 times your body weight. Can you give people, like, let's say 3-5 tips to deadlift that much weight? I mean, I'm sure there's got to be something to your methods.
So, I mean, the first one, I will have to say, you have to pick the right genetics. My deadlift is, my best lift, and it's definitely also because of how I'm built. like for example, my bench press is nowhere near as good as my deadlift. I have a good bench press, but the way I'm built, I'm not as good at bench pressing. So pick the right parents. That would be the first recommendation. And then from there, when you really break down deadlifting, it's different than squat and bench press. And what I found is with bench press, you tend to do better with moderate weights and higher volume. And with deadlifts, you actually tend to do better with more intense weights and lower volumes. So, and you can also supplement that with speed work as well. But lower volumes and higher intensities of deadlifts. So 3 to 4 sets of 3 to 5 repetitions for max effort work is usually what I'll focus on for my strength. And then for speed work, I'll do anywhere between 6 and 10 sets of 1 to 3 reps at a very low weight. So no more than 50% of my 1 rep max, just because I don't want to stress myself too much. And cycling between those 2 days has always been the best thing for my deadlift. Speed work didn't do much for my bench press ever. I just got better from benching more with more volume. But for deadlifts, having the max effort and the speed work was unquestionably one of the best things I've done.
I can imagine. I find the same thing too. And how sure you still use bands and chains? Because I find bands still beneficial even when I'm raw, especially for deadlifts. What's your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, I think bands and chains are great for deadlift specifically. I don't use them all the time, but if I'm having trouble locking a weight out, or if I want to practice getting the bar off the floor faster, or if I just want to try something a little bit different, then I'll use bands and chains. Most of my training is now completely just sans bands, sans chains. It's like just straight up raw barbell. But for deadlift specifically, I do think there is merit to having that accommodating resistance.
Yeah, awesome. That's a great point. And let's talk about your. Let me see how to phrase, because right now you're not like a powerlifting coach, or at least most of your clients don't do powerlifting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you still train them as powerlifters, or is it like a completely different animal to you?
Yeah, so most of my clients are not power lifters. A lot of them are, but most of them are just general population people who love working out. They like getting stronger. So it is heavily based in the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. That's the major lifts that I program. But they're not the only ones, and we're not trying to make them peak for a competition. It's more like constantly going through the training process, cycling through ups and downs and ups and downs, to make sure they stay happy and healthy and strong as often as possible, as opposed to trying to peak them for a competition.
So basically, you still train them like powerlifters, but you just leave the peaking part out. You just wait for volumes and intensities according to their needs.
Exactly. Sometimes I have clients who train 2 times a week. I have clients who train 5 times a week. And the programming will always change based on the person, their schedule, and their own skill level. But yeah, so it's not a peaking program. It's all about how can we continue getting stronger over time, just like powerlifting, just with a different end goal.
Cool. Yeah, because I noticed one of your latest programs or products is powerlifting for weight loss. Is that something that developed from training regular people that probably most often want to lose weight instead of peaking for a powerlifting competition? Tell us a little bit about it, about how powerlifting for weight loss came to be and what it is exactly.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's been a blessing. It's been really, really good. So what I did was I have an email list that people can subscribe to on my website, and with that,
Sitefitness.com.
yeah, scientfitness.com. Can sign up. You get a bunch of free ebooks and downloads with it. But what happens is when I have all those people on my email list, I sent them a survey, and I always want to give content for what my readers want. So I asked them to fill out a survey for me, And out of thousands of responses, I had over 90% of people say they were interested in powerlifting for fat loss as one of the options. So I figured I'd be an idiot if I didn't create a powerlifting for fat loss program. And it's been massively successful. I literally just got an email before we hopped on, a guy who's lost 12 pounds in the first 12 weeks, stronger in all of his lifts. And it's just using the principles of powerlifting in addition to smart nutrition and other styles of training as well.
Cool. And it is like a one-to-one thing with you, or is it a digital product, or do you send them DVDs?
So the Powerlifting for Fat Loss is the first one is a free 30-day training manual. So, and with that, you actually get a nutrition webinar as well. And you can actually get that if you just go to powerliftingforfatloss.com. You can get that and opt in for it, and it'll be delivered to your inbox for free. But later on, I'll be hosting group coachings for Powerlifting for Fat Loss, and I'll be creating specific products for people. But for now, it's mostly just that free product.
Cool. That's very generous of you. I mean, there's not a lot of people who give away 30 days of programming for free. So I definitely should check that out, guys. So hop onto powerlifting for weight loss. Yeah, powerliftingforweightloss.com. Fat loss, sorry.
Yeah.
So one more time, powerliftingforfatloss.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make it right for you, man. No problem. So let's finish off with you already gave some tips on deadlifts. Let's finish off with some general tips for powerlifting, or to become as strong as possibly. I mean, let's say we have guys starting out for powerlifting. What would you tell them? What should they do and what shouldn't they do?
Man, so many things I would like to tell them. Number one, I would say, is understand the importance of building and not testing. And this is a really important thing that most powerlifters, especially when they first start, forget. And they don't, they just want to constantly test their 1 rep max. They want to test their strength. They want to test how strong they are. And their training is mostly consisting of them trying to lift as heavy as possible. But testing is not building. If you want to build strength, you have to reduce the weights and do a little bit higher volume. So if you're only testing your 1 rep max all the time, you won't get stronger as quickly as you would otherwise. So you don't have to eliminate 1s and 2s from your training, but the majority of your training being focused between like 4 to 6 reps with pretty difficult weight for those ranges will build more muscle and build more strength in the long run. So that would be a really important one that I would say.
Definitely.
Number 2 is, let's see.
So let's say, should people focus on squat, bench, deadlift only, or should they change their exercises every week?
So with my programs, it's the same program for 4 weeks in a row. Okay, so they have the exact same program. The only difference within the program might be the repetition scheme. So on week 1, it might be 3 by 5. On week 2, it might be 4 by 3. On week 3, it might be 3 by 4, and on week 4 it might be something else. So, and that's all done purposefully to ideally at the end of every 4th week you're peaking. But I don't like to switch the movements every week. I like to really pick some movements, get stronger in those every 4 weeks, and then change them out for something new. And that, from my experiences, tend to be not only the best from a results perspective, but also from a relative ease in terms of programming. If you're changing things every single time you go to the gym, it can be a little bit hectic and pell-mell.
Yeah, definitely. And why wouldn't you keep the exercises the same for the whole 12 weeks, for instance?
So you could, but what I've found is you could do that for more of a beginner lifter. If you're just starting out, you can keep for 12 weeks. You could probably do the same program and continue to make great progress over that time frame. But as you progress to more of an intermediate to advanced lifter, staying on the same program for 12 weeks is probably going to do more harm than good. I would rather have someone change movements every 4 weeks, because then they get to target specific weaknesses. They're not doing too much of one movement, so it'll be less likely to have an overuse injury. So there is a lot of importance in switching it up every month or so.
Cool. Thanks, man. So let's wrap it up, because it's getting even darker and darker over here. I mean, you're in Boston, I'm in the Netherlands, and it's what's like, it's 11:15, so it's almost bedtime for me as well. But I mean, thanks again for taking the time to talk to me, man. And I got some really good info out of it. I hope the viewers on YouTube later on too. So thanks again, man. I'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Thank you, man. This is great. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, and people, let me get this right, powerliftingforfatloss.com, right?
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
I'll talk to you, man, later.
Peace.